All right, welcome back, Tide fans. I'm your host, Sean Taylor with Tide Talk, and I'm here again with Maurice Booth. Maurice was on the show with me back after Game 3, or before Game 3, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And so, Maurice, 8 games.
Yep.
Give me your high-level take on it.
I'll be honest, and people, you know, I post my predictions every Saturday morning on my Facebook page, and it's, you know, kind of in the thing of Leonard's Loser. For those of you that are, you know, older than 35, I can't wait to get there. But and I'm honest about everything that I say as a college football fan. And I'll be honest with this. I know there's nobody, as long as Tua's playing, that can touch this Alabama team.
Well,
now that they're perfect.
That's right.
They got their weaknesses.
That's right. It's funny. We were just talking about that. But first, let me say predictions. Last week on the show, I predicted the score to be 55-17. I was close.
Very close.
I was close.
Yeah. You know, that's the sad thing about. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
But every time that you know, if I don't include one of the 3 around here, Alabama, Auburn, or Georgia, somebody will chime in and say, what about this game?
Right.
And so I decided I always had to include it. And when it comes to Alabama, I always put on there, it depends on Nick Saban's mood.
That's right. If he's going to let them play or...
Somebody texted me during the game the other day about, you know, y'all could at least make it interesting. I said, it's nice to cover by the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
And it really could. He takes his, and it's a classy move, and he don't want to run it up. And most coaches wouldn't either, especially, you know, half the conference is former staff members.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
So, yeah, I mean.
All the guys that used to work for him.
Exactly. You know, you don't want to be ugly about it, but you could, and they know that you could. So it's, I really think that, you know, and you and I were talking, I think you're going to lead into about, well, you really haven't played anybody.
Yeah. I mean, how many times are we going to?
Go ahead.
Well, we were talking about before we got on the air. We were talking about if Tua plays. You know, I know that you've heard it. They're talking about it in the press. They're talking about it on social media. You know, if Tua gets hurt, we're in trouble. Right. And there's some legitimate concern there because, as we've seen, you know, there's no question that there's a different dynamic when he's in the game as opposed to when he's not in the game.
Well, there's a reason he's the starter.
That's right. That's
you
right.
Be as good. That's when we have.
That's right. However, as I was mentioning to you, you know, that brings a different philosophy, in my opinion, for some coaches because, you know, Jalen Hurts has progressed as a quarterback.
Somewhat, yeah.
He's not just the Jalen that as soon as he sees trouble, pull it down and run it.
Right. And now keep in mind this first time that he or we have had a quarterback coach. Dan Enos.
A legitimate, true quarterback coach.
He played quarterback for Michigan State when Saban was coach there. And I think it does a lot of good to have that personalized coach to, you know, when he comes to the sideline, that he can direct all of his attention because he's not calling the plays.
That's right.
Like Lane and everybody else.
That's right.
So it helps that he has that one-on-one time. And yeah, you can see somewhat of the progressions. You'll still see some safeties walk up a little bit when he comes in, but then they'll stretch the field, and he's been fortunate to where he's burned them a few times. If you want to play up, you know, the thing is you throw it deep.
That's right.
So that's all.
And for us, we don't just have one guy that can go up top.
Right.
You know, we've got 2 or 3, 4 guys that can go up top. You know, so, you know, as I mentioned, I mean, I really think I'm certainly not saying, I don't want you guys to hear me, viewers. I'm certainly not saying that we're not going to skip a beat if Tua were to not be in the game.
Right.
Not saying that. However, I feel more confident as a fan seeing how Jalen's progressed some because he doesn't just pull the ball down and run it when he gets in a little bit of trouble. He's staying in the pocket, trying to stay in the pocket a little bit more. What I do believe, though, Maurice, is for 8 games, teams have been seeing, and maybe only for a half, but they've been seeing Tua stand in the pocket, you know, deliver, you know, strike after strike after strike.
Well, you gotta. The one thing that everybody talks about, and they made mention of it the other day, and they don't get enough credit. The offensive, because we're not really running the ball that much. Offensive line, man.
Impeccable job.
Yeah. Tua,
Impeccable job.
Tua has had, and Jalen has had, whenever
Mac Jones is
comes in, they've had a lot of time. They've never really been rushed, and people can say, well, you haven't faced a defense or whatever. Hey, it is what it is. We face whoever.
We faced who's on our schedule.
So we're going to say the same thing in 2 weeks?
Right.
If we do the same? If we do, I'm not being cocky, but if we do the same. So, and I say we because, we are Alabama. But, yeah, I mean, it's when a quarterback has time and Jalen doesn't feel as pressured, he has time to go through his progressions. Tua, I think, is second nature. He has, that inner clock that they always tell about for quarterbacks to have.
And he does it so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets through his progressions pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But my point is, again, defenses are preparing for Tua, who is a pocket passer and has the ability to take off and run. But just like you saw this past week against Tennessee, I mean, Jalen throws some really good balls, but when as you mentioned, the safeties walk down, he throws some good balls deep. The safeties back up, what does that do for him?
Right.
He's comfortable running, the Joker's going to take off, and he scores on a 21-yard.
I know Tua is a dual threat. I prefer him not to be a dual threat.
Well, he's listed as a dual threat.
Right.
But you really hadn't seen Tua run the football. Every quarterback's supposed to be able to pull it down and run when necessary.
Right.
But you hadn't really seen him run the football.
I really don't
want him to run the football.
Yeah, exactly.
Rightfully so. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. For me as an Alabama fan, and I'm a football fan, I try not to be that guy. But at the end of the day, I just don't see anyone yet, and I'm not saying there isn't, I hadn't seen anyone yet that's going to be able to step in the ring and go toe-to-toe.
I watch a lot of college football on Saturdays. I haven't. The only team that I could possibly see right now, and I'm not saying that as cocky or whatever, but really the only team I see that would come close to presenting a challenge would be Clemson. There's not enough great defenses. Michigan's got the #1 rated defense, but
God, they don't play anybody.
They really haven't.
They don't play anybody.
They haven't played offensive juggernauts.
Listen, I'm going to say the same thing. I know you're probably thinking it, and we may get into this conversation. I don't know. I watch a lot of football too. I don't just watch Alabama. I'm a football guy. I like watching football. But back in 2012, everybody kept talking about Notre Dame, how good Notre Dame was, and
I wasn't.
But we see what happened, and now I'm hearing Notre Dame and Michigan's got the best defense in the country, and I'm just thinking to myself, I hope we play them. I wished.
That's fine. I mean, no, but I don't know. And I sit there and here's the interesting thing that we can kind of move this over to another part of the conversation. What you see, the standings haven't come out yet. They come out next week. I think it's going to be incredibly interesting because I think there is another good chance that 2 SEC teams could make it.
Without a doubt.
I don't see the Big Ten could eliminate themselves, somebody from the Big 12. I'm not even going to mention Pac-12. So all that has to happen. Then LSU could get in, and I won't get into who I think that East could get, because I'm going to get a lot of comments on Saturday morning from my posts, but it'll be fun. Well,
we're gonna go to a break here in just a second, but I do want to come back around and talk a little bit about the Tennessee game. I want to talk a little bit about Jeremy Pruitt, some of the comments that he made afterwards, and some of the things that he had to say about Alabama, especially just being there last year. So we're going to take a short break. On behalf of Bob English and State Farm Insurance, hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
Thank you.
State Farm agent Bob English is here to help protect all the moving parts of your life with auto, home, life, and financial services. Bob English and his team make it simple to bring together what matters to you. Get to a better state. Call Bob today.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. So in the last segment, we just talked a little bit about just everything going on with Alabama football. There's some more conversation to be had with respect to that. There's a lot of stuff on social media, a lot of press. But let's review the Tennessee game real quick. Again, really over in the first quarter. I mean, if you really look at it, it was over in the first quarter. Now, I think Tennessee had some successful drives, did some things well. I'm not so sure that they were getting our best at that time. I think our guys were thinking, let's put it down in first and second gear.
Well, I did like the quarterback that came in, Chris.
Christ, I think was his name.
I liked in the starting quarterback. He showed a lot of guts against us and played well against Auburn. He just happened to get hit and he kind of took himself out
by a Mack truck, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and there's some controversy around that.
Yeah.
But no, I thought he played well, and the one receiver that they have that's really big, he's a player. He'll be playing on Sundays. But I thought they played extremely well, considering also we took the foot off the gas pedal. But kudos to them. I like a team that doesn't just lay there.
Well, Jeremy Pruitt made the comment. I mean, and listen, he was very honest. He said we just didn't have enough guys.
It was, but the way he said it, I thought was, I've never met Jeremy Pruitt. I thought it was disrespectful to the current players that were there. Now, Dan Mullen has said something similar at Florida about players that we need to win aren't necessarily here yet. And but to do it during a game at halftime, I know you're emotional. And Jerry, this isn't new to you because you scouted this team last year as a coordinator, so you know what they have.
Right.
And now they're your guys. They're your boys. Now, if you got an issue with them, then put them on the bench.
Right.
But I thought it was a little disrespectful.
I think it was trying to be similar to when Saban first come in. Years ago, he didn't have enough guys buying into the process.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what he was trying to say, because he's trying to put his stamp on it.
I think you say that in the locker room or in the meeting room. We have Scott Frost at Nebraska. They've had something very similar.
Yeah.
Basically saying if there are players here that don't want to be here or compete at this level, they need to leave. That's a little different than coming out of halftime and saying, it's going to take another recruiting cycle to stop this team. Because to me, you just disrespected your players that they may not be as good, but they're giving you everything they got.
Right.
They're out there on the field.
Yeah.
That's what you have.
Do you think that the week leading up to the Tennessee game gave our guys any extra motive? Tua, as an example, Tua was supposed to throw his first interception. And had they made a play, technically could have.
Sure.
The deep ball into the end zone.
Threw a bad ball.
Yeah, threw a bad ball. But still, to this point, the kid's not throwing an interception.
Nope.
If I'm not mistaken, 25 touchdowns, no interceptions, still has not played a snap in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But do you think leading up, it's what I've always said. I think Saban's toughest job is just trying to keep our guys motivated. When every week you're a 3-touchdown favorite,
right?
How do you motivate your?
Well, I think the motivation offensively, especially for the skill positions, is the fact that you got 2 or 3 other guys at your position
that could.
Then you got a backfield. So if ball comes your way, you better make it.
Yeah, you better make a play.
Because the next time it could go to this guy who will make a play.
Right.
And you may not get this ball too many times. So, and they've all the wideouts especially. Name a time in our history there hasn't been.
I just said it on the previous show. When have you seen the disparity? When have you seen an Alabama offense spread the wealth
Well, it's not only just spreading the wealth; it's what you're dealing it to.
Right. And the ability everywhere.
Name a player that lines up for us in a skill position on offense that couldn't start anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how good they. And I'm not bragging or what they are. This goes
Hey, this is
back,
an Alabama show. We can do that.
But it goes back to the 2000. Remember when we were signing the 2017 class, that this was rated as the best college football class ever, above the USC 2004.
Reggie Bush and
Yeah.
all those guys.
And I'm like, well, that's
Matt
a little heavy. That's how do you measure that? Well, now you're seeing it.
Right.
And it really is that good when you utilize that talent.
Well, it's what we were just talking about before the show aired. You know, if we have to stop throwing it, oh, by the way, we got 4 guys that we can hand it to,
Right.
that are fresh legs, eager to get some touches. You know that they're hungry to make plays.
Yep.
You know, so you're exactly right. At each position, there's just that
And
guy
as a
that-
side note, we hadn't talked about this. I just wanted to mention it. Did you notice the other day that Joshua Jacobs started in place of Damian Harris?
I did.
didn't know what was up with that. I hadn't heard anything.
Do you know what was?
The only thing I can think of, here's a nice reward for working your tail off,
Yeah.
and you've been here. And he's a great, for somebody his size, he's a really good blocker.
And I'll tell you this, I'd be willing to bet Damian Harris probably patted him on his rear end when he went
Oh,
out
yeah.
there. And I mean, he's just, I can't say enough about that guy
Right.
as far as his approach, his, just his attitude. I mean, he's just a class act.
He'll have his handprints and footprints at Denny Chimes this
Yeah,
spring.
without a doubt. I mean, he is just really, really sharp. And as I said, he I don't know why he didn't start, but he probably, congratulated Jacobs, and when he got in there to do his job, he did. And,
Right.
So yeah, the Tennessee game was about what I expected. I figured, as I mentioned, I picked 55. I chose 55-17, and we won 58-21. I was pretty close. I'm not gonna pat myself on the back or anything, but I was pretty close.
Hey, go ahead. Why not?
Okay. But again, defensively, is there any reason to be concerned about a
Yes.
couple of the scores?
Yes. I've been critical of Saban's how he addresses after the game, and I'll leave that alone. But the one thing that he said that I really, as a former defensive player, is I don't think I've beaten anybody if they've scored 31 points on me.
Yeah,
And that was against Arkansas.
that's right.
And they gave up some, not cheap ones, but lost focus against Tennessee. And Tennessee is not exactly offensive juggernaut, but they try. I think the secondary still has some gaps in it. Defensive line, I mean, we really don't have a pass rusher. Haven't really needed to so much, but it would help. I mean, you kind of miss people like Tim Williams.
Sure.
Rashawn
Ryan
Evans.
Anderson.
Yeah. I mean, you miss that kind of outside influence, and we really don't have it. But then again, you're not going to run that. I mean, they're run stoppers.
Yeah.
As far as defensively, that's the one thing that concerns me.
Well, one thing that I liked that the other coach, Jeremy Pruitt, made the comment. He was talking about that we really didn't do a lot of stuff. We really didn't blitz a lot. We really didn't do a lot of different things.
Right.
We just brought 4 or 5 guys.
The best. We were talking the last time. The year we had Ashawn Robinson, Jonathan Allen, Jared Reed. When you have a front 4, and you can line up, you put 4 up, and you don't need to
bring
blitz.
the blitz.
That's a good defense because you got coverage back here, and
That's
you know
right.
you got pressure,
That's right. And that's what
and it's rare.
that's basically what Jeremy Pruitt was saying, is they really didn't need to do anything special.
Right.
That the guys up front, the Quinnen Williams, Isaiah Buggs, that they were basically getting enough pressure on their quarterback to affect him,
Yeah.
without bringing those. So as a former coach, I'm glad to hear and see that, because what that says to me is we still got some stuff in the bag. We just hadn't had to show it yet. And and that's exciting. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna go to another break in just a second, and we're gonna talk some more about just the fact that I don't know that we've played a full game yet. Meaning, I don't know that we've really put a full game together with packages and schemes, and Tua still ain't played the fourth quarter and all those things. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We're going to go to another break on behalf of Bob English and State Farm. Hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
Savings this big come with their own theme music. State Farm agent Bob English in Phoenix City can help you get all the discounts you deserve with a free discount double check. After all, real savings should fold, not jingle. Get to a better state. Call Bob today.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. So, Maurice, we were wrapping up the Tennessee game. Bye week this week. Definitely going to win this one. I think it's coming at a good time. We've got a couple guys banged up. I believe Jalen had some minor surgery.
Yeah, had a little ankle surgery yesterday.
Yeah, and supposedly nothing serious, but just to help him heal and get ready. Supposed to be ready by LSU week. Got a couple of guys banged up. Devontae Smith didn't play last week, little hamstring issue,
right.
Which is difficult in his position. I mean, as Saban said, you got to be full speed. So I think it's coming at a really good time. But I tell you, I'm really looking forward to November 3rd in Death Valley at night. I mean, look,
Have you ever been?
I've never been.
Oh, that's great. My
son has been.
Don't take a date, but it's fun because they get a little obnoxious.
My son has been. A kid that he played college ball with, so I'll give a shout out to Blaze. Is from Louisiana.
Okay.
Lives there. Knows Coach Orgeron really well, and
can he understand him?
He can.
Okay, good.
If that says anything, then he can.
I love Coach O. I just can't understand the daggum thing he says.
Nobody can.
Yeah.
He has an interpreter most of the time.
Cookie Monster.
But he has had a chance to go. Said it was incredible, unbelievably loud.
Yes, it is.
So that's all going to play a factor. But I'm really looking forward to it, just because I'm tired of hearing the press and the people and the media talk about we haven't played anybody yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, what happens after this? What if we do? Is it going to be the same thing?
It's going to be the same thing. Yeah.
But now, and you don't know where these rankings now really mean nothing.
That's right. Doesn't mean anything.
But you got to think that the committee will have them, LSU, I'm referring to, top 6 or 7 at least. So
projected at 5.
Yeah. So if we do, is it going to be that LSU is overrated?
Right.
Or that
well, that's already the conversation. It's already out there that.
Well, then I challenge myself with this, and I can't come up with it. Give me the top 5, top 7 teams. If this team doesn't belong there, then who do you put in there?
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's what we've talked about over and over and over again. And as I said, we both agree. We don't believe anybody yet that we've seen to this point, 8 games into the season, can match up with us, can stop us offensively. But I'm certainly looking forward to the challenge that will be presented to our guys on Saturday night. Death Valley, night game, crowd,
I will say, and I can't ever, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, the defense coordinator at LSU, Arma, whatever.
Arnada.
Yeah, $2.5 million a year, highest paid coordinator. And I really think that, I don't say that he's worth it, but he is one of the most, if he wasn't on that staff, I don't think they would be where they are. He is an incredible coordinator as far as, in Pruitt, Jeremy Pruitt's a great coordinator we talked about. But, it's not about just X's and O's, Jimmy's and Joe's. So I think they have some Jimmy and Joe's. I know they got some X's and O's. So if there is a challenge, this and I don't want to think ahead, but Venables' defense at Clemson would be the only two that come to mind, and I don't include Michigan. But the next game with LSU, you face a very quality coordinator that
Sure.
is going to bring. He's going to give you looks.
He's going to have their scheme. He's going to have their disguise. He's going to have everything ready. It's what you hit the nail on the head. When I was an offensive coordinator several years ago at Russell County, a buddy of mine, I used to tell him all the time, this should work. This should work based on what I saw on film. And he said, from a design perspective, it should work.
Right.
But can your Jimmies and Joes execute it?
Exactly.
And that's the bottom line. I mean, I think that they'll be prepared. They'll be as prepared as anybody. I agree with you. Their defensive coordinator is a fantastic football coach.
Right.
Leads right into them missing their starting linebacker, who's supposedly the best linebacker in the country.
Only for a half.
Going to miss him for a half. Let's talk briefly about the impact of that, but also just the targeting call as a whole, not just his.
Right.
There's rumor out there. Not rumor. There's press out there that Mack Wilson should have gotten the same thing. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's all, and we kind of talked about it. It's all about interpretation of the rule, and as far as when they list the requirements for it to be targeting, you go through those steps, and it's not up to the guys on the field. Everything for that goes up to the booth. So if they go through it, now that's on him, and he has to answer to Steve Shaw
Right.
and the rest of the executive committee of the SEC. I don't know, because I've seen some games where I go, not just Alabama, other games.
Right.
That's targeting, and it's not called. Then I see some where they call it. I'm like,
Right.
it's so hard, even as precise as they try to define it. It's so hard to apply it to where this. I saw one where Deontay was making a hit. He tried to duck his head, and they called it, but then they waved it off.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's ducking his head trying to get his shoulder, and then the other guy brings his head into it, not intentionally.
Right.
So how do you apply that?
It's very, very difficult. It's what I said before the show. It's like calling charging in basketball. It's almost impossible at regular speed.
Right.
I mean, when everything's going, it's difficult, which is the reason that in my understanding is they teach the referees to throw the flag
Yeah.
and then review it.
Right.
Throw the flag and then review it, because then they can slow it down. They can, get different angles and clips.
What I like that they do, they're doing a lot more of, is they'll stop it, and they'll tell the head ref, "Hey, we're reviewing targeting."
Right.
And that's fine. And I like the fact that they're getting. And I've said, if you really want to get away with, take the face mask off. There's no requirement that you got to have a face mask.
Yeah.
That's not in the rules.
That's a good point.
So, but that ain't gonna happen.
No.
So yeah, it is one of those. And when you said that is a great analogy as far as charging in basketball. Is it charging or is it blocking? Is this guy leading with his head? Is he trying to do with his shoulder? Then somebody else hitting.
It's so difficult to try and make that call. And as you said, apply all of the criteria.
Yeah.
Listen, as an Alabama fan, I don't believe, in my opinion, based on what I watched and slowed down, I don't believe Devin White's play was targeting. I don't believe that. That's just my opinion. I watched it a few times. Now, I didn't get to see several angles. I watched the one angle that I saw on social media.
Yeah.
I watched Mack Wilson's, and although his was way more vicious,
Right.
I don't think his was targeting.
Well, when I watched the LSU game and I saw that I said, well, again, it's down to interpretation. And I saw Mac, going back with Mack Wilson. I was like, well, I didn't think it was, and I really didn't think LSU's was.
Right.
But I don't know what it is, but I think as far as the SEC goes, that Steve Shaw should meet with each of the. You can meet with the head referees, but more importantly, meet with those that are in the booth to make sure that there's a concise and consensus interpretation of this rule.
Because here's what I don't want to see happen. I don't want to see us go up 35-0 in the first half, and that's what we have to hear. Devin White wasn't in the football game. You know, Alabama, it's a conspiracy. You know, history repeats itself. We're going to be up 35-7 in the first half.
Right.
I just, you know, I don't want. I'd rather the kid be able to play. And you know what? They were talking about how they were going to appeal the call, and they were going. I wanted so badly for Nick Saban or somebody to just, you know what, let him play. Let him play.
You can't. Well, yeah, I get what you're saying. But if Orgeron wanted to do that, which he came out later and said, no, it's just what it is.
It is what it is.
Exactly. And I don't have a problem. I really, I think that's a solid thing that should be considered is appeals. Now, you got thrown out of that game, but it still has you still have time to correct it if you want to.
That's right.
And I agree with that. I like the fact, and you can tell by how not just our team but other teams are tackling, that it's making an impact. And
sure,
it's
it
good.
Is.
You know, people don't realize the effects of some of these CTEs that it has on players later on.
Sure.
So I'm glad to see whenever I see somebody come in for a tackle, and it's gotten to the point where you immediately, when you see somebody do something that you should know better,
right?
And you've seen it in some games. So I'm glad to see that the rule is making an impact. And I think the NFL even came out and said that for their first part of the season that their rate of concussions is way down.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and look, there's no question that it needs to be addressed.
Right.
I think it's very difficult. Everyone knows that football is not just a contact sport, it's a collision sport. Everybody knows that.
Right.
I wish there was a way to be able to figure out how to avoid those injuries, but it's football. Yeah, it's football. I know that all of that we discussed is going to be interesting come next Saturday night, November 3rd in Death Valley.
Baton Rouge.
In Baton Rouge. And I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to the game. It's going to be difficult to go this Saturday without watching Alabama football.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
You got Georgia and Florida to get you over that.
Yeah, well.
Did you like my prediction on that one?
Yeah, go ahead and give it to me.
Gators.
Going with the Gators over the Dogs.
I am. And like I said, I don't know how many Georgia fans are over here, but they're kind of out of their mind over there from where I'm from. But it has nothing to do with I just see two different teams now.
Well, you heard it right here, viewers. Maurice Booth picking the Gators over the Bulldogs this Saturday. Make sure you watch it.
If you bet it, don't blame me.
If he's right, I'll mention it on the next show. But well, Maurice, thank you so much again for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tide fans, we look forward to seeing you.
Thanks for the coffee.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We're looking forward to seeing you again when we.
When did you make this?
Fresh pot right before you got here.
That's good.
But we'll see you again right here on channel 7 and 207 at 8 p.m. next Tuesday night with more Tide Talk and Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Is this breakfast plan? It's good.